So I went home recently, a couple of weeks ago. And I went home for a few reasons. All of them great, obviously. And they've all given me, just being home, being among my family, being in my country of birth, and a few events on the trot. I mean, frankly speaking, it's given me material for days, for episodes. Don't worry, okay? If you were worried about the content drying up, because I know my schedule's been on the piss, but we got mad content just from this one 10-day trip alone. And I'm coming in spicy hot, so forgive me. And I think about it, I think I'm wearing the same shirt as I wore in a few videos. So I'm sorry, okay? I'm coming in raging hot on this one. It's going to be a good one, okay? Because, I want to start at the top. Like the first thing I did, the main reason I went home, I would say, and then what has been sitting with me really since the beginning, because it became a theme of my trip. Yeah. So I went home to the UK for a wedding. Wonderful occasion, right? Fabulous day. A very old friend, a beloved friend. We've been through many things together. School, music things, university things, breakups, friendships starting, ending, all of the things, right? We've known each other for a very long time. And as a result, a lot of our other friends were there, and some of my closest and oldest friends. So it was just a fantastic occasion. And I hope this person doesn't watch this podcast, because maybe this will get a bit real. But I'm sure they won't disagree that they've had some bad partners in their life in the time that I've known them. And I think I've known them since they started dating, and now they're married. And I'm just over the moon to say, having finally met their partner, they're now a bride. Oh my gosh. It was just fantastic. It was so lovely to meet them. It was so wonderful to see them both together. Their dog was involved. The dogs, howling at the back of the chapel, trying to be involved in the ceremony. Beautiful location, just a fantastic day. One of those rare days in the UK that the sun actually shines. Everyone's looking great. It's post-COVID in terms of, numbers allowed and masks off and all that kind of stuff. So just phenomenal. And again, the real gem of the day is having known this person through terrible relationships, heartbreaks and hurt. Yeah, there's a real partnership here. And now they're married. And that's just like, it makes you feel things. It makes you believe in things. It's just wonderful. And, that was the focus of the day for myself, obviously, and for everybody else who joined in. And we partied hard, and we ate a lot, and we drank a lot. But, the core of the day was this couple and their love and their commitment to one another and their future together. But most people that I told about this partnership, this marriage, focused on one aspect. And that's what I want to talk about today. And they focused on the fact that this was not a heterosexual wedding. Now, that's been legal in the UK for a long time. A long time. And then there were civil unions before that, and this is not the first queer couple to get married in British history. Nor is it the first queer couple to be married among our friends and, friends of friends and family friends, etc. But I think what made it, people focused on the fact that it was not heterosexual, number one. And then they really focused on the fact that one of the people at the altar prefers to use the pronouns they and them. It just became the through line of every conversation that I had about this wedding. And it kind of just began to blow my mind. And I can understand that perhaps it's a newer concept to people. But I think that's not what I got from interactions with people. Oh, it's new to me, that concept, and I'm happy for them. It was, the reaction I consistently got was, it's new and I wish it wasn't happening. I wish it was another way. And I'm just never going to understand that. I mean, frankly speaking, it was new for me. I have always known this person as she. And they have gone on to redefine themselves or re-identify themselves amongst us as friends. And they've said, okay, it doesn't matter if you trip over your words and you use she. That's okay, because there's a history there. But I would prefer, if you're introducing me to new friends, if you're thinking about the words that you're using, choose they. Okay. All right, I will. You've educated me on your preference. I am a good person. And I recognize the language that you've used to talk to me. And I'm going to respect your choices. And I'm going to do the work. And I also heard you say that you'll forgive me when I stumble. And that's it. That's the whole situation, okay? But what my repeated experience was, when I told other people outside of the wedding, people who weren't invited, and almost inevitably people who were of a different age range, but not necessarily, they would say, oh, but why? And then the next thing they would say is, oh, I don't care. And that stuck with me. That repeated, I don't care. I'm going to take you all the way back to episode 1, okay? If you've been watching since the beginning, thanks. But let me tell you this. No one who doesn't care says they don't care. It's so straightforward. And it's such a childish and toddler-like behavior to spit the words, I don't care, at someone. Oh, I can tell by the venom in your delivery that you care very much. I can tell by the tension in your body that you care very much. And I can tell maybe that you want to pass a comment or two on this situation. And some people did. They said, oh, well, I just don't get it, who's the bride? I mean, fair question. Because, having been educated by my friend on the fact that they prefer they. I did find it interesting that during the ceremony, the vows that they had written, like both people at the altar had written, referred to both of them at the altar as she and bride. And so that I kind of like found that, I was like, oh, okay, that's really interesting, because this is sort of a presentational mode for you guys, and maybe a chance to educate anybody who's still not on board. And we've kind of reverted to, well, I guess the previous model. So that was certainly interesting. But again, it's just like, it was so inconsequential. It is extremely consequential in their life and in their day-to-day life. But in this day, in this moment, it was about the marriage. It was about the union. It was about the love. It was about the happiness. And not one person who I told about this wedding after the fact ever mentioned any aspect of that. They went straight for the, They went straight for the, who's the bride though? They went, what do I call them? Thank you for being respectful in your ignorance. And I just don't get it. I don't get it, because what are you scared of? What are you angry about? What are you upset about? Because as far as I can tell, it's just your lack of understanding. And I think there's space for that. Obviously, you don't have to understand. You're not supposed to understand straight out the box any new concept that gets introduced to you. You have space to wrap your head around things, to learn new ideas, and to adapt your thinking to this new information and move onwards as you see fit. That's all chill. But if your first reaction is anger, is pushback, is rage, is refusal to accept, rather than an open-minded approach of, damn, that's new to me, I'd like to find out more. I'd like to find out why you feel that way, if you're chilled at talking about it, so that I can better understand, just for my own ends. Then that's, I just don't. What does it benefit you? What do you gain by your rage? What do you gain by your pushback? What do you gain by your aggression about this? And more importantly, what does it fucking matter? Is it crucial that you understand to give this person respect? Is it absolutely necessary that you understand why this person wants to consider themselves they before you think of them as just a human being who you can be cool with? And just have some respect for as another person you share this planet with. Again, I'm just like, what are you losing when they call themselves they? And it was this question that I was asking myself constantly, and then I mean, I don't know if I found an answer, which was what I was about to say, but I certainly got some extra information because a decent number of those same people, certainly the people closest to me, who most vigorously said they don't care about this scenario, said, went on to watch a comedy special, a stand-up special, and the auteur, Ricky Gervais. I mean, I've got a lot of time for Ricky Gervais, okay? Sorry, had. The Office is the greatest comedic creation of all time. I will fight you. And I'm talking about the UK office. I'm talking about the real shit, okay? And even in the fact that it got translated, it went to America, and it became what it is today. We can thank Ricky Gervais for that as well. And Extras, which is just phenomenal TV and didn't make the move, but like deserved to be. And there was one more after that, can't remember. Life's Too Short, really funny. Then it goes downhill. There's movies and there's other shows, and we start to lose him. And so now he goes, from his stand-ups at the beginning, which were like intelligent takedowns of religion and I can't remember the other one, to today, to this new one. And this new one that a bunch of people watched, because it's on Netflix, And I happened to be in the room when it started playing. And that was completely accidental because I was working, but Netflix was on, this was chosen, and it started. And he comes straight out the gate with a shit ton of trans jokes. And, I really enjoyed the more recent Dave Chappelle specials. Because despite of, even though there were, I would say, an equal number of trans jokes, that was almost the through line of all these like more modern specials of his, was trying to work out how to communicate in this more, trans aware, trans visible moment in society, and relating it back to whatever. But the difference, I'm sure some people won't agree with me, but the difference between Dave Chappelle's approach and Ricky Gervais's approach was quite stunning in the absolute lack of intelligence that Gervais showed. It was just astonishing how dumb, how ridiculous, and how, meat-headed it was. It was quite impressive. Because as I say, I sort of enjoyed the Dave Chappelle string of specials, where they got to, how it delivered it. And yet he is obviously a controversial figure. He obviously skirts the boundary of what is acceptable, how comedy can be presented, what are the conversations that we're having in society, and how can we have them. And you could absolutely say that Ricky Gervais is doing the same thing. And that's what he's built his career on. All good. But holy Jesus, the sort of lowest common denominator stuff that he was coming out with, made me reconsider my love for those marvelous first episodes of television that he wrote and broke onto the scene with. It was quite amazing. So Gervais, he steps up onto the stage, and within the first few minutes, he's making a joke about a rape victim. So, just amazing, first off. And the joke is, tell me if you've heard this one before. The joke is that the rapist is a man who's identified as a woman solely for the purposes of entering the women's bathroom. And when he gets in there, he commits the crime. He assaults somebody else. But here's the punchline. The victim is themselves identified as a bigot and called a bigot, and they become the shithead and they become the bad person because, oh my God, they misgendered their rapist. And why did they do that? Because their rapist, quote unquote, has a giant cock. It's just astonishing, It's just like absolutely fucking mind-blowing. And I feel like a dickhead, right? I feel like a dickhead for talking about this because I'm doing exactly what he wants. Like, I'm playing into it. He said some things that are knowingly offensive. I am taking offense. And now I'm ranting about it myself. And that probably makes you, dear listener, vaguely interested in watching this thing just to see if it's as bad as I say. And it cements in all our minds that Ricky Gervais is controversial, on the edge of comedy, pushing the boundaries, etc. And he's not done that by being intelligent about it. He's done that by being as dumb as possible about it. And I think, that what I'm trying to... I recognize that I'm playing into that trap, but I'm really just trying to bring it up because I'm trying to take away from it that, like, to be angry about the new politics of gender is to be thick as pig shit. You can feel feelings, you're welcome to. But you have to recognize that this hero of comedy has had to hit the lowest of lows of common denominators to get a laugh, to get a reaction. And he's relying on this trope, on this joke. And what it does is make him feel, and make everybody who laughs at it feel, that they're very smart. And that, I think, is the most egregious part about it. Not the things that he said, but the mentality of it. What's going on behind the scenes? It's like, oh, I'm so smart for pointing out that, like, it's a worse crime to misgender someone than to commit assault. And I find that to be the most horrific thing, because everybody in the room is laughing, and everybody who took away anything from that show is laughing, and the person who put on this special continued to bring up this moment in the show for the rest of the week, actually, and everybody's laughing. But what's the joke? Because again, you're leading into a trope, and that's all great, and maybe that's where you find comedy, but let's just dig a little deeper. Show me the one time in history when this has happened. Right? It's a comedy trope, or it's a trans joke trope. But usually tropes and jokes are, based on some aspect of reality that's kind of dialed up for comedic effect. But this is a fully fledged phantom scenario. Because never in the history of trans people has this ever occurred. And I challenge you to show me a scrap of evidence that this has occurred, that a man has identified as a woman for the sole purpose of sexual assault. Number one, that's never happened. Two, a man who regularly commits or is willing to commit sexual assault, the only way they do that is to identify themselves as a woman. That has also never happened. Do you know what has happened? Thousands of years of sexual assault of men committed to women long before there was ever public discussion about anything to do with gender. It has happened for all of human history. From when we were animals to now when we like to think of ourselves as civilized. It happens thousands of times every day. The statistics of women who are victims of sexual assault are completely heartbreaking because it is so prevalent, it is so consistent, and it is so pervasive in every aspect of our culture. And so the idea that men need some kind of excuse or cover, and that they would use the opportunity of identifying as another gender just to commit their crime is so egregiously offensive that it really, you can tell that it's obviously not something I even enjoy talking about, but it has just stayed with me this whole week because that is the truth that's being ignored by the joke. And I thought the fucking point of comedy is to point out the truth. It's to say, here's the truth. And here's the truth dialed up to 11. And so here's the craziness that sits around the truth. And now we can all laugh about that. When I try and crack a joke, that's what I'm trying to do. Or you engage fully in the surreal and you twist and you subvert. And that's fun as well. But this is a joke that imagines a world where rape does not exist unless the concept of gendering and misgendering exists. And that is so incorrect, it makes me hurt. And the people who are laughing are people who are ignorant of that fact, willfully ignorant of that fact. The fact being that sexual assault happens constantly, all the time, every day. It just completely blows my mind. And again, it's just like the fact that it kept being brought up, that this was so funny, that this was so insightful, that Ricky Gervais said cock, and he and she, what does it all mean? Ha 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 ha. Rape. It's quite mind-blowing. And at the same time, we had these horrific goddamn news stories going on about the shootings in America. Far from the first time. But it just seems to be getting worse. And the conversation seems to ever deteriorate because it seems truly hopeless. And yet we continue to have conversations. What are they about now? We've been talking about... I actually heard that there was a suggestion that we should have robots with tasers in schools. Right? There was that whole through line about doors, about the door being open or whatever, the back door, and that's how the one of these shooters got in, and that was the problem. And they just reminded me of the same thing. It's just like, here's this moron on television talking about how, we got to lock all our doors and doors are the problem, but we got to make sure people have their guns. And obviously, the access to guns is what's killing all of these children. What's killing everybody of all ages in America. But most horrifically and most jarringly, it is killing school children whilst they are studying at school. And yet here we are talking about doors. And here we are talking about, or acknowledging maybe in the joke, in Ricky Gervais' joke, he's acknowledging that rape is a horrific thing that shouldn't happen, right? And he's blaming the concept of gendering and misgendering on the fact that rape exists, or that, rapists get away with it. The punchline of the joke was that the victim wasn't listened to because they were judged to be a bigot for saying him instead of her, etc. But that's the reality. Victims of sexual assault are not listened to. Crimes are not reported. Rape is not reported because victims are not listened to. So it has nothing to do with cancel culture and gender and what Ricky Gervais, white privileged male, is or isn't allowed to say. It has nothing to do with any of that. That's happening. So are you accepting, Ricky, that that's a problem? That you'd like to do something about that? Oh, no. Your takeaway is that the problem is, and could only be, if the rapist were somebody else, pretending to be someone else, misgendered, and that's the real issue. And so it just astonishes me, the ability of people to understand the terrible thing that's happening and willfully find something else that is at fault for it, when the obvious thing is right in front of them. And then those same people have a problem, not with rape, not with school kids being murdered, but with two people getting married. That's the problem that they have. That's the issue that they have. The bad thing that they find in the world is two people wanting to be married to one another, wanting to commit their lives to one another and find happiness in their lives. That's the issue that they have. It just blew my mind that, you know, again, a lot of these conversations are about like, oh well, we want to by not allowing people to fuck with gender, not allowing people to fuck with my idea of gender, we're protecting something, we're saving something. By not giving people, by allowing people to have guns, not taking their right to have guns away, we're protecting something. Neither of those things are true. And what are you protecting if not the freedom for two people to live happily together? And then when I say, oh, I'm going to a wedding of two people, you say, I don't agree with that. I don't understand that. What are you fighting for? What are you scared of? What do you feel like is being taken from you? What is hurting you so much? And maybe it's just fear. Maybe it's just not understanding. Again, maybe it's just not being able to get your head around something. And maybe that's because that's what you know, right? If you've been told your whole life that you're a woman, that you're a man, that means this, that means that your life is on a path, I think it's very unsettling to meet someone who says, I reject the path. I reject what you've been told. Because maybe you have seen it as a hard fact, as a genuine truth of biology and nature. But obviously, you know, when somebody comes along and says like, well, I think that's bullshit, and they don't drop dead in front of you, it must be very difficult to deal with. And so I kind of, there's something in me that empathizes with that fact, you know, because if you have lived your life by that rule set, and you have lived your life in that doctrine, and you have, you know, grown up with and lived in the shadow of the statement that a man is a man is a man and a man does this, then yeah, when someone exists otherwise, how can you not question your own existence? Because they've questioned theirs and they've done so successfully, and you are at this stage in your life, 50, 60, 70, younger, whatever, and you've never questioned it. And you've held things back from yourself. You've restricted yourself. You've put yourself in a box that was defined for you. And somebody else comes along and just says, fuck that box. That must feel shocking. It must feel unsettling. It must feel painful to know that someone made a box for you and you stayed in the box. And you could have got out of it this whole time. And so if it's coming from that direction, if it's coming from that angle, then I guess I do feel some empathy. But the empathy stops when you spend the rest of the week seeing everybody and going like, hey, it was really funny when Ricky Gervais said those people are wrong. And they're all like, what the fuck's wrong with them, right? They're fucked up. Because again, it's coming from a place of you don't understand. But that doesn't mean they're wrong. And that doesn't mean they don't deserve your respect. And that doesn't mean that they're not just as human as you. But you're not giving them that chance. And you're not allowing that humanity. And it's ironic, because for that same reason, they deserve the most humanity. By saying, fuck that box, by saying, I'm not just the rules, and by saying that I've been told to be a thing, but instead I'm going to be who I am, and I'm going to find out what that means. That is innately human. That is like saying that we can be more collectively, individually. We can be more than just like passed down rules. And so making a statement like that, it should be revered. It should be respected. It should be celebrated, right? And yet it's feared, and again, it's just in defense of something that doesn't need defending, and it's in the name of saving something that isn't being attacked. I remember the first time I told my parents that a friend of mine had come out as gay. And they said, what a shame. Not because he was gay. They said, what a shame, because he would have made so many girls happy. Not like he was a player. But like, there's so many girls that he could have married and finally made happy. And it was a shame. All of their lost, hypothetical happiness as girlfriends, wives to this man. And you see the joke right away, right? What about all the men that he can make happy? What about all the men that he can be happy with? What about his own happiness? He's come out. He's accepted who he is. He's announced who he is. And your first thought is, oh, there's a little girl somewhere who doesn't get to be a wife. And that's sad. I've never been able to understand that. I think the irony was most clear this week because, if what we're defending when we're upset about queer marriage is the values of marriage, is like the getting married, is the process, is the the procession is the event, the moment. And further down the line, raising children, right? If that's what we're defending, if that's what we're upset about losing, then you are shooting off your own foot, because this couple are married. They got married in a chapel under the eyes of God. They committed to one another, and they want to have a child together. It's gonna be hard fucking work, because that's the situation we're in terms of same-sex couples trying to conceive and raise a child. It's going to be incredibly hard work, but they want to do it. And yet, every straight male at that wedding was single. Right? Chilling. Unencumbered by wife or child. And so, when you're angry about the sanctity of your family values being undermined by these gays, just look at that statistic. Look at that scenario. They're following your path. Got the house, got the dog, got the rings, getting the child. They're doing the thing that you wanted. Parents, enraged parents of southern England. They're doing the thing that you wanted. So what is your aggression about it? And I think, that, again, all these feelings are coming up because this is what I'm reminded of being at home is that questioning all of this is a crime. And it's even a crime if you do all of the things on the path, but you change one thing, which is just the gender of your partner or yourself, right? It's an affront. It's an offense. And again, then some fat little man gets up on stage and talks about trying to be offensive. But obviously, we're not the ones who are so upset about this whole scenario. But it's these things that, from early on I was questioning, and having strayed from the path to come back home and be reminded of when I was most keenly on it, and that these values should still exist is tough. But I'm extremely grateful, and I'm extremely blessed to say that when I was a teenager and when I was, being knocked over the head with these kind of values, I had a wonderful group of friends, of which this married couple, at least the person I knew of the two of this couple, we were very close. All my friends who were in attendance, we were all very close. And in that group and in the larger group, there were a lot of people who pushed these boundaries of sexuality, who dated people of the same sex, of the opposite sex, who questioned the idea of gender and why are we all doing this and what does it all mean. And those ideas were openly discussed and openly practiced, and that happened from an early age. And it really just informed my thinking as I went through life, so that when people did, make a decision, not that no one ever pushed them to, but when they would come out and say, oh, actually, I'm gay and that's where I'm at, or in the bride sense, they said, I'm they, and I tripped up, and she'll forgive me for that. They'll forgive me for that. But these are decisions that people came to, and from this like lifetime of lived experience of finding out who they are, finding out themselves. And it's just amazing to grow up around that. And so now that we are in this position as a broader society where we're having these ideas, I think in the same way that the people I'm bringing these ideas to now are saying, oh, that's new and I don't understand and I reject it. Their rejection is new to me and I don't understand it and I reject their rejection. And that's why, I've come into this episode so hot and I'm feeling the rage, is because like, I don't get it. What do you feel so upset about? Because for over half my life, this has just been the standard. People are who they are. They love who they love. They smooch who they smooch. And he and she and they are all bollocks. And we're lucky in English, trying to do this in Italian is a whole other conversation. And as a country, it's like so much goddamn further behind in having these kind of conversations. But it is limited by the language. And that's a very interesting fact because, they is right there. And again, I think it's really interesting because the reason it can be rejected is because people are approaching the idea of they as a new idea, but it's not. It's kind of a preceding idea. They is the core. We're all they. If I was to politely refer to someone I don't know, I would probably use they or them. Not for any reason to do with gender. It's just, again, it's a kind of sort of politeness in the language that we can be more general. And it's only later that we were like, oh, no, this camp is he, this camp is she, and never the twain shall mix. And so the idea of reintroducing they seems new, seems abrasive, seems fresh, but it's really just because we've spent so long driving these imaginary binary and opposite states apart. And so when I was introduced to this concept of they, it just felt so familiar. It just felt so comfortable. Because the truth is that I've never thought of myself as he. I've never thought of myself as a man. And again, that, that feels like I'm making a radical statement. That feels like I'm being like, oh, I want to be something other. I want to be something else. I want to be seen as something else, maybe. But no, it's just that I don't strongly identify with these radicalized ideas of what being a man is. From the obvious tropes of sports and physical strength and drinking and lad culture and, sexual promiscuity and sexual aggression. It's not that if that's what being a man is, then that's not me. And I'm not a man. And I think this is why it's really difficult for me to articulate what's happening in this conversation, because there are two states of mind, which is I don't want to be that, so I don't identify as that, so don't call me a he, don't call me a man, because that's not what I am. But also there's another side of the conversation, which is that's not what a man is, so let's just lose those ideas. And then, yeah, sure, he makes sense because it's what I've been called for 30 years. It rolls off the tongue. People are more comfortable using it. And it doesn't make me feel ways. But the conversation around it definitely does. And so, again, the concept of they feels very familiar. Feels natural to me. But I'm not at a moment in my life where I'm going to say, where I'm going to put that on my Instagram, by my name. I'm not going to, go on the process of like educating friends, or re-educating friends rather, and being like, well, this is what I prefer. But that's just where I'm at with my journey, is that like I feel comfortable being referred to as they. I feel comfortable being referred to as she. Like I just feel like if there's a bunch of people drinking, I would gladly refer to that as a girls' night. And if I were involved, I would gladly refer to that as a girls' night before I would think of it as a boys' night. But that doesn't mean I just like, there's something fun about the idea of a girls' night that I more readily identify with. But like, that doesn't mean anything in terms of like my larger narrative and story. I just, that's where I'm at. As opposed to my friend, my very close friend who I cared dearly about, who got up in front of all her friends and family and said, this is the person that I love. And before that and leading up to that, they did go through the process of re-educating us and saying, I prefer they. It's on my Instagram. It's on my business cards. It's how I'm going to introduce myself going forward. If you can remember it, then so be it. And you know, keep it in mind. And if you're going to talk about me on your podcast, then try to correct yourself, or you'll seem like a dickhead for getting it wrong for half an hour. And that's where they're at on their journey. And that's wonderful. Because isn't the goal that we're happy, we're sure of ourselves, we're feeling confident in ourselves, and we're able to tell people, this is where I'm at, this is who I am? And shouldn't we feel glad when somebody says that to us? When somebody says, this is who I am, we should be like, fuck yeah, dude. Congratulations on knowing yourself, being comfortable, coming to terms with yourself. That's wonderful. But we get this aggression, we get this pushback, we get this anger. And that's what I think the problem is. So, yeah, I hope some, if not all of that, made sense. As you can tell, this is a very emotional topic for me. I'm feeling a lot of ways about it. So I hope this was a good episode. Again, just being at home, being around all of this is obviously bringing up a lot of feelings, and there's a lot to discuss and talk about. And I hope you'll join me on this journey. But I just want the takeaway to be, you don't have to understand someone to just be fucking cool about them. To show them a little respect, a little courtesy, a little humanity, a little love. You don't have to understand them. But the fact that they can come to you and say, I understand myself, or I'm trying to, I think I'm getting there. That we should applaud. We should welcome. We should celebrate. Thanks, guys.